Hey guys, if you've been following me lately, most of my videos have been just home improvement videos. Today's another home improvement, or at least garage or shop improvement video. I live in Florida and it gets really hot here, especially in the garage, and it doesn't really motivate me to do any work. So today, what I'm gonna do is install a Minisplit air conditioner right here on my back wall. So stay tuned. My garage here is about 850 square feet, so I've got plenty of room now versus my old house where I only had a 2-car garage. Now I've got a 4-car garage. It gets really hot in here, so a couple weeks ago I ordered a Minisplit. It was a Pioneer brand Minisplit and they just got it in the store, so we'll go ahead and go down there and pick it up. We'll take the minivan down there so we can put it in the back and then bring it back here and see what we got. Oh yeah, this baby fits in the back of the van perfectly on the outdoor unit, and then the indoor unit, I just ended up putting it right here in the back, which is perfect for transport. Can't wait to install this at home. See you guys back there. Before I get started on the install, I probably need to pick up a vacuum pump, either off of Amazon or at Harbor Freight. That way I can vacuum that line before I release the refrigerant. All right, so we're back in the shop or in the garage, and I loaded all the stuff out of the car onto a table. Except for the outdoor unit. The outdoor unit is kind of heavy, so it's on the ground. What we have here is the indoor unit, which is in here with the controls. We've got the Lineset. The Lineset comes in here and it comes with a 16-foot Lineset. The unit is actually pre-charged up to 25 feet of line charge. So it's a little bit extra refrigerant in there. The Pioneer brand, it's been around for a while. It's actually distributed by Parker Davis, and they're a HVAC company that's been around since the 90s. So they marketed through this brand as Pioneer, and I think they sell some other brands with other names. So if you're in the market for one of these, always look out for deals, either on Slick Deals or on Amazon. Usually the 1-ton or the 12,000 BTU unit that I have here, it's around $700 to $800 depending on what kind of deal it is. Also, if you're in South Florida, I believe you can actually order from these guys and pick it up from their warehouse as a will call, which will save you on shipping. So we'll go ahead and just open this up, see what we have so we get this started. There's a few staples that you probably have to pull out once you cut the tape off. Be careful not to cut too deep in this. I don't know how well the packaging is or what's on the surface of these. Most of the warnings on here are no step. So inside here, you basically, you just got the indoor unit. It's got brackets right there. Pull out this way, a little bit easier. So back here, you have the refrigerant line that's tucked away with the bracket. So we'll go ahead and look at what's in here. So you've got the mounting bracket for your remote control. You got the nice remote control there. Flare refrigerant guard. I think that's the leak seal. I actually bought some extra in case. Here's some flare nuts for the flare lines. I think that might be extra. Some anchors for the wall. A grommet, must be for the drain. 2 filters. And then your remote control instruction booklet, batteries for the remote, the read first instructions. So we'll go ahead and read through that before we get started. So we'll go ahead and cut open the Lineset and see what this comes with. It comes with a roll of tape, a little grommet for your hole, a drain line for your condensate out of the indoor unit. I believe there's a line guard that goes between your wall before you put the grommet on here to protect the line going through the wall. Your electrical connection from your indoor unit to your outdoor unit, and then your copper insulated line. One of the things that everybody online always recommends that you do is inspect your flares on the copper lines to make sure there's no burrs or no damage from shipping or from manufacturing that might cause refrigerant leaks. So I went ahead and bought a flare kit down at Harbor Freight just to make sure I clean up these flares before I attach it to the units and everything's airtight. Also, if you don't use the whole 16 feet, it's probably recommended to cut this down and reflare this for what you need. So a few other supplies you need before you get this project started are, you're gonna need a whip, which is the wiring from the outdoor unit to your junction box. You need a disconnect switch for that whip to go into, and then your power from your house to go out to. You need a hold saw, you need a gauge set, and you need the line covers. So I ended up picking up the 1/2 inch 6-foot whip. You can pick these up at Home Depot or on Amazon. I'll have the links down in the description if you need this. In addition, I picked up a 60 amp because that was the only one that was still in stock. They sell this in a 30 amp, and really the amperage is not your fuse. Your breaker inside your panel in your house will act as the breaker if there's a short, but this acts as a means of disconnect. So you could use a 30 or a 60 as long as it's enough to handle the current that you're going to put through it. But these are pretty cheap, and I'll have a link down in the description for these. Depending on what kind of wall you have, I have a CMU brick wall. I'm going to need diamond bit hole drills. The Lineset kit, I found these on Amazon. I think it was like $40 or $45. It's about the same price as High Seer and Parker Davis and Pioneer sells it for, but they actually had it in stock. I believe these have been out of stock on their site for a long time. On their site is like $35 or $40, but they charge shipping, so it ends up being about the same as Amazon. But it's got all the same exact parts that Parker Davis has on their site. So you have the line covers, you have all the joints and the connections, you have the end piece, which is the flex piece into the actual outdoor unit. When you get down there, you have the one coming out of the wall so it does a turn. You'll need a gauge set because you're gonna have to take pressures to make sure everything's operating properly. So you got this gauge set that's good for a 410A, which is the refrigerant that comes on this. This also works on various refrigerants that are used out there, so if you ever need these for any reason, you'll have it. I'll have a link down in the description for this too if you need these. The vacuum pump is usually like $90. I'm just go ahead and go down to AutoZone and actually rent one of their vacuum pumps, which is probably better than the $90 ones that you get at Harbor Freight or online. This thing comes with basically everything to service cars, because this is a fitting for cars. You've got all your hoses. I have another one that has like a little disconnect on. I might end up using that for the connection into the actual unit, but we won't need all these wires for what we're doing. We're only connecting up to one side, when I believe it's on the low pressure side, so we don't need the high pressure side. So my wall in here is a CMU wall, which is an outside wall. And right now, what I have on the other side of this is the condensing unit for my house. And they have the actual power coming through the CMU wall right there, and it has a disconnect on that side. Over here, I have another wiring conduit that comes into the wall and drops down, and there's actually a GFI 120 outlet on that side right there. I'm gonna mount the indoor unit right here on this spot near this location. And here, basically what I have is a section of CMU right here has that wiring coming down, so I'm going to avoid drilling into that or dealing with that. I'm actually going to do it right next to that on the next block over, drill the hole through there and run the refrigerant line through. As far as power goes, so at the moment I'm just going to end up tapping the power that's going to that GFI right there to use the 120. What I did is I measured the distance from there to there, and then I measured from the ground up. So that 16 feet of line is perfect, because on this unit right here, we have the line right here, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna end up bending that out. And when we bend that out, we're gonna have an extra, like 2.5 feet right there that will go through the CMU wall. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna punch a hole right here in the CMU. And my garage doesn't have many power outlets other than this one right here. I've been adding other power outlets through my different projects along the interior walls, but on this exterior wall, I don't have much as far as power goes along this wall. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a dual gang box into here. I'm gonna cut that hole. I'm gonna tap into that wire going to that GFI and have 4 outlets right here for my 120. At the same time, I'm gonna end up tapping that same power for the outdoor unit of the split system right there. And this is going to be temporary until I pull my sub panel. Once I pull my sub panel over here, I'm actually going to run a 20 amp service into that outlet and also to this unit, so that way I give it a little bit more slack. The first thing we want to do is kind of mark our location of the new box. I'm using this old work dual gang box. Remember, the way that your cinder block stacks, there's probably like an inch right here of solid cinder block that makes the wall of that, so you got to be over a little bit from there. In the center here is pretty much the open cavity. Now we got these 4 holes cut. We'll go ahead and get a chisel out and then chisel along the line. So I cut this thing, chiseled it. This baby fits right into here now. Usually once you do this, especially on the cinder blocks, you need to put in some spray foam just to fill in the gaps. I'm gonna go ahead and just leave it like this for now because I need to wire it up temporarily. And once I put my sub panel that I'm planning to put over here, I'm gonna actually run a 20 amp circuit to this and the outside outlet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull a 14.2 Romex from the GFI on the outside up to here through the GFI, so that way I use that outside GFI to protect these 2 outlets that I'm going to put over here. So outside here is where we're going to be putting that disconnect. We're putting it somewhere right about here. Another perfect aligned hole. Got it right there against the wall over here of the cinder block. Perfectly aligned where I need it to be when I mount it. And this thing is extra thick just because there's like 1 inch of stucco before you get to the cinder block, so you got to work it in there and get all the little bits out. But we've got that hole in there, so we're gonna mount the disconnect to this spot right here. So to get this onto the wall, you just take this thing apart, plastic cover comes loose, and then inside you have your mounting holes. You have the hanger up top, and then one of the 3 mounting holes on the bottom just to get it secure. Then you just want to choose one of your knockouts to knock out, and the different sizes that you want to use depending on how much wire you're looping through here. All right, so we made the connections, and what I did is, like I mentioned earlier, I'm just running the one side right now for the 120 connection. Eventually, if I ever go 220, I'll have this ready to use the second leg. So what I did was just put the line into there, the ground, and then I left my neutral right here. That's gonna be connected to the whip that goes into the unit. And then down here, I just wired into the GFI that I have right now. So I actually wired it on the line side, not the load side. The load side means that it's protected through the GFI, which I don't want, because I don't want this thing to over amperage or anything that will trip the GFI. If it's gonna trip anything, it's gonna trip the breaker at the panel. So I just made all those connections through there. I grounded everything and I ran everything through the bottom. As far as fishing the wire through, the hole that we drilled was pretty big, so I was able to fish it through easily. I have the grommet in here. What I'm gonna have to do is basically put a zip tie or something right here to give it as a strain release so this thing doesn't pull through for any reason. So I'll have that done. Once I'm ready and everything's closed up, I need a caulk around all the edges, all around here, just to keep the water out. And the hole, since it's bigger than what it needs to be, I want to make sure that's all sealed up too, so we don't get water inside the building or inside the CMU. And once that's done, I'll just paint it to match the other box over there and the HVAC stuff. So looking at the back here, it looks like everything kind of clips in right here, and then there's some clips at the bottom here that keep this thing mounted to this bracket. I guess out of the factory there is a screw that holds it into here. Once you put this unit onto the wall, I'm not sure how you would secure that. We'll go look at the instructions to see what it says, but I doubt we can use that later, just because once you bolt this to the wall, you have no access and no room to get to that. So we'll go ahead and mark where I want to mount this thing on the wall here. So I believe the instructions say you have to be at least 6 inches from the top and have enough space on either side. So we're pretty good here as far as either side goes. So I want to basically align it where I want to come out to this side, not between the disconnect and the refrigerant line for the main. So I'm going to probably come in over on this side and then just come down near the shed. So after I mount the bracket, I'm going to measure the distance on there and see where I need to drill my 3-inch hole. So I pretty much got it installed with the anchors. Everything's nice and secure. I'm gonna go ahead and just shoot these in. So I've got this Amazon drill bit, the diamond bit. If you guys need any of these tools or whatever I'm using, that most of my stuff I get on Amazon, so I'll have a link down in the description. But what we're gonna do is just basically center it from in the center of all those marks that we have there, and then just start it off. This doesn't have a pilot hole in the center like some of these circle bits, so you just gotta be able to get it scored so you can shoot it on correctly. So that diamond bit cut a nice clean hole, as you can see right here. The main thing that you gotta do is get it started. You wanna get the drill bit moving really fast, and then you just touch it and then it'll start cutting. If you start by putting the actual drill bit on the surface, it's gonna move all over the place like I did early on. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna cut a pilot hole using a drill bit from here outward to the outside wall so I can know where to drill when I get out there. And also I want to be on a downward angle for the drain line. That's the most important thing, to making sure that your drain line drains downward. The refrigerant line is going to be pressurized, so that thing will move no matter what, but your drain line needs to kind of go angled down so you can drain out. All right, so we're out here outside now. I found my pilot hole right here. When I was in there, I saw that the seam is right about here where the joint for the cinder block is, so I got to kind of guess where it's going to be, and there's also a little wall on this side. Remember to keep that in mind, especially if you have cinder block walls. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and chisel around some of this stucco to get down to the cinder block so I can actually cut this thing out. So we can see inside the hole right now. I did go off a little bit too low on this. I actually cut into the bottom cinder block too, and the offset is like 2.5 inch offset downward, but that should still be enough room for me to get the line through without much problem, and then it allows the drain to have a downward angle so it drains easier. All right, so next thing we do, we gotta prepare the indoor unit so we can hang it up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bend these lines out to match the hole. The one thing you wanna do is you wanna be careful when you're bending the copper, because it is copper, it can kink easily, so you just wanna slowly bend it out. Get the drain line on the bottom, kind of line it up, and then when you get it through there, you just got to be careful. These things have the caps on them to protect them, so you want to keep those on there. In that hole in the line set, so we got the grommet right here, we want to put it in the hole. So we got this thing fished through. It barely made it through right there, so I'm gonna have to kind of turn it out. So I started a little bending it, and then I put that little sleeve that the line set comes with to protect it right through the sharp edges of the opening right here. So I got inside and I realized I forgot to run the power wire through here. So I'm gonna have to go and get inside and figure out which side goes where. So you got the side with the 4 plug-in pins here, and then you got the side with the spades. I think the spade goes to the outdoor unit. I was able to push that wire harness through the outside into here and then fish it through with a needle nose. And I got the wires in there, so you want to do, the ground is this right here, and it's the green. And you want to go red, black, and white, which matches the red, black, and white above here, as you can see. And then you just want to make sure that you do 1, 2, 3 on the outside unit, the same order, red, black, and white. You got to make sure the strainer relief is screwed down to hold these wires in place so they don't yank out for any reason. All right, so we're back outside. We have the cord, so this is a 16-foot cord. We just want to see where this thing leads, and this is probably where we're gonna have to end up. The same with the line set. So one of the things I read online that they recommend you do is check your flares before you install it, and you may want to just redo the flares a little bit, clamp them again just to make sure you get a good angle on these. So what I did is I picked up a Harbor Freight flare tool. I might just go ahead and reflare some of these just to make sure everything is nice and tight. Compared to some of the crap I've seen online, these flares that come with these Pioneer lines are pretty good. They're actually double wall flares, and they were pretty nice already. So all I did was just clean them up a little bit, give them a little bit more compression. Overall, they were pretty good already. I didn't have to cut them down or anything. So it's a couple days later, and we had some rain, and I had some other issues to deal with around the house. We're back at this. So before we go any further on this, I'm about to go and start marking where I need to put in all my Lineset cover stuff, because you have to drill holes and everything and get these all mounted, and that way when we do end up putting the lines in and all that stuff, we can install these covers and seal them up so everything is nice and secure without any water or anything getting inside. Once these go up onto the wall like that, we probably have to seal around the edges with some caulk or silicone just to make sure that we have a nice tight seal. If you look over there on the electrical disconnect box, I already sealed that up with some silicone so rain doesn't get into that hole. So I got this thing mounted right up here for now, and then I got down here. The vertical one right here, I'm gonna have to cut down a little bit because it was a little bit too long. So I went ahead and drilled a 3/4 inch hole right here using one of these spade bits, and we were able to just cut a hole perfect for this pipe. I ran that drain pipe right there. I was going to drain the condensate right out here. And then I did a little bit of wire management. I screwed in a hook to the screws and I put a zip tie. So I did that all the way up so I keep the condensate and the wire nice and neat on the back side. I'm going to go ahead and connect the refrigerant lines now and just run them along here just to see how much refrigerant line I have and how much room I have over there where I need to build my pad. On the Pioneer lines here, when you take these little plastic covers off, you'll hear a hissing sound. These things are actually pressurized from the factory, so you'll hear that hissing sound when you take that apart. Just don't be alarmed. So I've got the line all mocked up right now, bent to where it needs to be, and going through all this stuff over there. So it looks like I've got plenty of room now to work with. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and just tighten that up there so I can actually tie this down and start mounting it to the wall. And then I can start working down here and getting that in place so I can know where my pad needs to be. The Pioneer actually comes with their own sealer for the flares. I went ahead and picked up some Nylog blue. This is the professional stuff that everybody uses and is more recommended. It might be the same stuff, but I'm not sure. But I'm just going ahead and just use this. It was like 10 bucks. Even though this will probably just work just fine, I just want to make sure I use the professional stuff. If you need this stuff, check out the links down in the description. It's like 10 bucks on Amazon. So when we get started up here, you want to make sure you have all your wrenches. One of these on here is a 19. I think the main nut on here, the big line, is like a 22 or something. I'm just gonna use a crescent wrench for that. So 17 and like 22. And then you'll need a 19 and a 14 over here to hold it. They do recommend you torque it. I don't have Crowfoot to torque it. Torque's only like 11 foot-pounds or something. It's really not that much to deal with as far as torque goes. Should be able to just hand tighten it and you should be good. Just hear the refrigerant or the air coming out of it. Don't breathe it in too much. So we'll go ahead and put the Nylog on both sides of this. It's like a glue. This stuff never dries, stays elastic all the time. Tip of that. And then put it over here also. Felt like 11 foot-pounds. So now I got that one. We'll kind of push that out of the way. Pull some more line for this one through because it's a little shorter on the other end. right, everything's nice and tight now. Go ahead and straighten everything out and try to get it perfect down the line. So it's the next morning, and last night after I got everything put together, I snapped these covers in just to see if they fit well. I bent the hoses all the way through so it fits nicely with the wire management. One of the things I forgot to do was wrap these wires with that white stuff that came in there, but I don't think you need it since I have the covers. It's not even real tape, it's just vinyl wrap with no tape. I don't know how it even stays. You have to maybe tape the end. I would recommend, if you don't have that much room coming out of the wall, that you bend your lines coming out of the evaporator unit before you put them through the hole. That way when you get out here, they're easy to bend. That was a big pain in the ass trying to bend that to fit right there. Go ahead and start putting the rest of the covers on and then working our way over there. So pretty much we cleared a spot where we're gonna pour this slab. It's a 3-foot by 16-inch box that it comes in. So I'm gonna make a pad that's the same size as that box just so I know it fits and I have a little bit of wiggle room. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a frame around here with some scrap 2x4, dig a hole about an inch, inch and a half deep. That way I can have that form inside there, lay down some rock, and then pour the concrete. So I'm gonna use the scrap wood over here. So on the long end, I'm gonna cut it 3 foot 3 inches to account for the thickness of the 2x4. On the short end, I'm gonna just cut it at exactly 16 and then bolt it together. Once I get it down there, I'm gonna use these gravel rocks right here, these pea gravel or whatever you can get at your local home improvement store for drainage on the bottom before I pour the concrete down. For reinforcement, you could use rebar, or I'm just gonna end up using this scrap metal wire I had laying around as my reinforcement. So we got this baby framed up. I did add a little extra on the ends. I decided might as well add 2 inches. Every guy can use 2 inches. So we'll go ahead and trim out that liner I have below there and start digging and then kind of set this thing into the ground. So we got it all prepped and ready. It's recessed about an inch into the ground, which is perfect. I dug out the dirt, left a little bit on the side, so when I fill it in, I can fill in where the 2x4s are, and we should be good. I'm gonna start with the gravel, lay that nice even bed, probably wet it down just to make sure it's damp, and then start pouring the concrete in. So we put in the first layer of concrete right there. I put the metal reinforcement down. I'm gonna mix another bag and go ahead and top it off and smooth it out. So we let this baby dry for like 2 days now, and after that first day I had a nice smooth surface here. Then we had torrential rains and it gave us this nasty rough surface here, but I guess it really doesn't matter. That's where the unit's gonna be sitting, and it doesn't look any different from the big unit slab over there. So I'm gonna go ahead and unbolt this thing, try to get the boards out, and then fill in those holes with my dirt and just prep this area for the new unit. Getting dark out here, but I want to go ahead and just mount it down, connect that up and run the vacuum on it, maybe installed and running tonight. So they designed this drain thing pretty stupidly. All it's doing is it's dripping to the ground, and it's just gonna block this thing from sitting on the ground. Maybe that drain is designed for when you actually have it mounted up high, but I don't think we're gonna need it. I might end up taking that thing out because all it is just a hole into the ground anyways. So got it set pretty much everywhere I wanted it. It fits perfectly on this pad. We end up having a little rainstorm out here, so I had to take a break. I decided on this one to mount it. I'm just gonna order some foots from Amazon, some rubber isolator foots that actually raise it up and they have studs, so that way I can mount it right into that hole from here with a nut, and then bolt it down to the concrete anchor with 2 bolts on each side. So I'm gonna wait for those to get in, mount that. Over here, I found another problem with my wire right here. It's a little bit short because the wiring is on top and the refrigerant's on the bottom. The refrigerant will reach when I bend the line over and connect it. I'm thinking about extending these wires. They're 16 gauge wires and it's a 4 conductor SO cord, but I'll extend it like in the middle somewhere so that way I still have these ends right here. Other than that, I want to connect the whip right now into here for the power, and then probably connect the refrigerant lines and then run a vacuum on this. For the whip, I mentioned earlier, I got a 10 gauge whip with these colors right here, which are really 240 colors. It should be fine for what we're doing. I'll just mark this as a white. That way we know it's a neutral. We'll keep the black as the hot and then the green as the ground. As far as it being a bigger gauge, it should be fine because we're feeding it with a smaller gauge wire. For the termination, it's fine. You never want to put a smaller wire at the end in case that wire ever pulls more current. It can't handle that current because it's thinner at the end. Ran into a little problem here trying to get this thing over here. It's got a weird angle, and then the way they have these things coming out of the unit, they've got it at like an upward angle, so it's a strange angle to try to bend these things in. I felt it kinking, so I cut the insulation so I could bend it without kinking it. And I did kink a few areas, but I tried to bend it and press it back so the kinks wouldn't be as bad. There is still a little bit of kinking where it made these turns, but I'm gonna try to straighten it out. Using this tool, just trying to get the round edges around those kinks again so I don't have any little bottlenecks here. But this is the 1/2 inch line, so this one should be pretty robust for what we need it to be. So we'll go ahead and make these connections right now. Take the caps off, put our nylog around the tip and the threads. So the big nut is supposed to be torqued to 25 foot-pounds. I think they tell you to hold this so you don't break this fitting when you're trying to tighten this down. Quarter-inch line is a lot easier. Make sure the cap fits on. We won't put the cap on yet because we still have to do the vacuuming, but yeah, cap fits on, covers up all the insulation. I just want to. So I didn't like the liquid tight connectors that came with that Southwire whip I got, so I went down to Lowe's and I picked up a few of these. These are only like $2.70 each, and they actually, once you put the hose in and you tighten this down, they actually tighten onto the hose so it doesn't slip out. That one from Southwire actually just slips out. And I didn't like the side that goes into the unit with an angle, so I just got a straight wire so I could just go straight into the unit. So we got that. Ended up picking up this one, which is a strain relief for the other wire that comes from the indoor unit out there. So this strain relief actually goes into the hole and then it holds the wire nice and tight once you tighten that down. Over here is those feet that I picked up from Amazon. It's a nice hard rubber, and then we'll be able to mount the unit about 2 inches higher. We'll have the studs to bolt it in so we don't have to worry about having screws downward. And then we got the 2 screws here that go into the concrete with the anchors and everything. So I'll go ahead and just install that off camera. So I ended up putting those straight connectors on. Everything fits nicely now. I separated that cover. It comes in 2 pieces, so I separated it, put all the strain reliefs and everything in, tightened it down. So now I'm ready to make the wiring connection. So I'm gonna go ahead and match the 1, 2, 3 wires with the inside unit up here. And then the ground loop, which is going to be the eyelet here, which is the green, is going to go to this little green bolt here. And then the green ground up here, and the main power comes into these 3 over here. So that should be pretty simple. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to keep the red as a neutral on here. I'll just mark it later with the white, so I know in the future that it's a neutral, but obviously I did the install, so I know. So I made all the wiring connections, left a little bit of slack here just in case I have to move it around later and not cut it too short. So should be good now. I'm gonna cover this up, seal it up with all the screws, and the wiring should be good. For this other wire, I had to basically cut it because it was too short, so I bought an extension. I'm waiting for that to come in. I'm gonna just end up soldering an extra foot or 2 feet on here just to give it a little bit of slack on that. So I went ahead and made the wiring connections in here to the one side for the 120. So I hooked up the hot, which is hooked up there, the ground, and then hooked up the red to the neutral. So we should be good here. This disconnect, basically, you put it upside down, it's on, or you put it this way, it's off, you put it that way, it's on. The way you read the on off right there. So I picked up this extension wire from highseer.com, which is the Parker Davis site, and it came with the right gauge wire, but it's a totally different type of wire than the one they send us. As far as the jacket goes, this is not even SO cord, but it does have the 4 16 gauge wires. There are different colors too, so as long as you match the colors, so there's at least red and black on the other one. I just have to use white as orange and then green as blue here and match it up when I make the connection on either side to extend it. So I will go out there and solder that now with my trusty soldering iron right here. Now that all the ends are nicely soldered and heat shrinked and wrapped, we're gonna go ahead and take some 3M electrical tape and just wrap these open ends nice and tight, and then tuck it back into here, leaving a little bit of slack in case we ever need it. So I picked up this R410A gauge set off of Amazon. If you guys need this stuff, check out the links down in the description. I'll have a link to all the stuff I use on this project. I ended up using 2 hoses I already have. These are actually more professional hoses than this thing comes with, but I just wanted to use it because the side that I'm gonna connect up has this little ball valve right here, so I could actually isolate it before I release it so I don't get refrigerant everywhere. And then this side is going to go to the vacuum pump. Usually, if you were to do this, you would be using a blue and a black hose that comes with the kit, but I have a red and a yellow, which is really the high side, but it doesn't really matter for what we're doing here with the vacuum. So for the vacuum pump, I mentioned earlier, I picked this up at AutoZone as a rental. It's a $200 deposit. Once I'm done with it, return it for my $200 back, but this is one that's more professional, used for automotive and for home use. There's 2 valves on here. There's a top one, which is more for the automotive, a 1/2 inch fitting, and then the 1/4 inch fitting right here, which is what we're gonna use on this application. So what we're gonna do is connect the yellow, which is the vacuum side, which is supposed to be black, but we'll connect it here, and then we'll connect this one, the service port, on the unit. So on the unit side, we wanna loosen the service port. We only have 1 service port here on the low side. So in order to connect this side, we're gonna have to put this adapter on because this is a 1/2 inch and this is a 1/4 inch fitting right here. So this gauge set comes with this adapter. Right now we don't have any refrigerant running through here, so we can just screw it in and let the Schrader valve work, but when we do take it off, it's probably gonna spray out, so we gotta be careful with that later. All right, hopefully that works. We wanna open all the valves up, open the gauge over here, and open the vacuum and turn on the pump. Vacuum for about 30 minutes and then come back and check the levels, and then we want to let it sit for 30 minutes to make sure that it holds the vacuum. So we've let this baby run for 30 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and close the vacuum on here, and I'm gonna shut off the pump. And then we're gonna let this baby sit right here with the vacuum line closed, and just let this line into there open, and we'll let it sit for 30 minutes and see if that gauge moves back to 0 or stays in a vacuum. If it stays in a vacuum, that means our lines are nice and sealed. We don't have any leaks that we know of, and we can release the refrigerant. So it's been about 45 minutes and this thing's still holding strong with a -30 vacuum. So it looks like we're pretty good here as far as the vacuum goes. So I'll go ahead and disconnect the pump and start releasing the refrigerant on this baby. So now that we got everything buttoned up for the wiring and the refrigerant lines, what we're gonna do is, in the instructions, is they ask you to release the refrigerant a little bit and just let it sit in the line to see if there's any leaks at any of the joints. So we're just gonna release a little bit of refrigerant using this valve right here in the Allen key, and then let's see with some water around the joints. If there's no leak, then we should be ready to go ahead and just run it. We're gonna leave the gauge on here because we wanna see what the pressures are on here so we can note them down for the warranty. And then we need to measure the discharge air inside also for the warranty registration. But you can see right there, this thing is still in a vacuum, so it's held pretty well. So I don't think there's gonna be any leaks. Go ahead and take this off. Remember, when we release this line, make sure you have gloves on. You don't want to burn your hands with this refrigerant. 5mm Allen key. So we'll go ahead and you'll hear it. You hear the hissing sound coming out of it. And then you want to tighten it back up. And then we're going to go get some water and spray the joints and see if there's any bubbles or anything leaking out. We see the gauge right there. It went up to about 150 psi, maybe a little short of 150 psi on the gauge. So we'll just see any leaks or anything here. We'll go to the top and check that one up there. Don't see any leaks. I'm gonna spray it some more and just kind of watch it and see what it looks like. So we'll go ahead and release both lines and then we're gonna run it, see if we're getting cooling and heating and getting our pressures. So with both lines released, the pressure in the line right now is 220 psi right there. So now we'll go inside and turn this on, see what kind of temperatures we're going to get discharged. All right, we got batteries in here. Yep. Ooh, it turns on. Temperature down. I'm gonna take this tape off. And right now it's only discharging 83-degree air, so it's not cooling down yet. Okay, it wasn't in cooling mode. So now we're in cooling mode. So the outdoor unit's running, the fan is kicking, nice and quiet. Our pressure right now is around 130 to 135 with a 410A is the red. So it's around 45 degrees on the temperature there. So we're right in the operating zone that we should be for this. So we'll just let it run for a little bit, see how cold it gets on the inside. Oh yeah, back inside, definitely feel the cool coming from here. We'll take the temperature reading. We're discharging around 69 to 70 degrees right now. Low it gets, but we'll have to record the discharge temperature plus the pressures outside for the warranty. So I lowered the temperature to 65, and right now it's discharging 66, 67. Oh, that seems good right there. So we'll go out and check the pressures on the line. So we're back out here, and at 65 degrees set point, we're hitting right around 135, 132 with a temperature of 47 on the 410A gauge. So we're good there. I think that's pretty good temperatures and pressure right there. So I'm gonna go put it on heating mode and see what we get for the temperatures and the pressure for heating mode. Got it on heating mode right now. I'm gonna turn it all the way up, let this baby run. 86 is the high as it goes, so we'll let it cycle. It's probably trying to reverse itself on the actual unit. So it took about 2 or 3 minutes, but the unit kicked back on in heating mode, and we're getting 85 to 86 degree discharge air. So right now the pressures are way out there, over 550 psi, but you can feel this thing is cold air coming out of the unit right now in heating mode when it's reversing the compressor. Yeah, the unit's got up to 100 degrees right now. So it's discharging 100 degree air. And out here is exhausting 69 degree air in heating mode. With the pressures are way off the charts. So I turned off the heat, and this unit's still just kind of running ramping down, but you can see the pressures are slowly going back down to the normal 220 or 225 psi when nothing's running. So the pressures after running with it expanded, it's more than 225, so it's around 245, 240 maybe, but I expect that to go down as the refrigerant loses heat or gains heat. So the next thing we're gonna do is close all the gauges and then close this one right here and release this thing. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually close the Allen keys so I can trap the refrigerant in the actual compressor and in the line so I don't lose that much, because I know I'm gonna lose some when I unscrew this fitting, because that second fitting right there, this one doesn't have a Schrader valve. That one does have a Schrader valve on it, so it's gonna release a little bit of refrigerant as we take this out. Hate doing this every time, but I'm gonna have to deal with this refrigerant leak. I did double glove so I don't burn myself with this. Oh yeah, very minimal leak. 2 hands. Put the cap on here, seal this one off, and then we're gonna release the refrigerant back into the line. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in all the way to the end of the longest video I've probably ever made. At least I have all the information to DIY this air conditioner by yourself. Do you guys hear that? You probably don't, because that thing is running right now and it's quiet as hell. It did take me a lot longer to get this thing done than I showed on the video. You can notice I worked on it over several days, but it actually took me several weeks. We did run into some family, personal issues. Everybody's safe and sound, but we had a little bit of scare with our youngest. That was really the only hiccup during this whole project. I've been taking it slower, spending more time with the kids after that whole incident, but you know, everybody's safe and sound now, so we're good, and we're lucky that nothing bad happened from that incident. But other than that, you know, I want to start focusing more on family stuff and kind of do this stuff on the side when I have time. Anyways, if you guys found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down. If you have any questions, I usually answer all the comments for all my videos. If you need any of the products or anything I use, go ahead and check out the description box. I'll list all the stuff I ordered on Amazon and the different things I use and all the different resources I use to learn how to do this. Remember, with projects like this, whether it's a car project, a house project, if I can do it, you guys can do it too. That's why I make these videos, so you guys can learn. And I want to thank you guys for watching this long ass video all the way to the end. And if you're still here, I want to thank you, and I'll talk to you guys next time.